Welcome to the Leading Hope Podcast with Kevin Jack. Your influence will lead people somewhere, lead them towards hope. Everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.
Welcome to Leading Hope with Kevin Jack. I'm your host, VJ Williams, here with my friend and pastor, Kevin Jack. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day to become a better leader. We release a new episode every Wednesday, so we'd love for you to share on social media and bring others along with us on this journey of becoming a better leader. Visit leadinghope.online to get updates and find out more about the Leading Hope community. If you're new to the podcast or haven't yet subscribed, it would mean the world to us if you did that right now. Also, post about it, rate and review. You will not believe how that helps get this podcast in the hands of so many more leaders like you. We are in our series Level Up. This is the third edition, episode 32. This is going to be great. Leading Leaders. Kevin, tell us what you got, man.
So in this series, Level Up, we're talking about what do you need to do as your position changes. Not as your influence grows. That's a different conversation, but as you move. So first week, we talked about leading yourself. Last week, we talked about leading others in your work as a manager, which isn't a cuss word, despite what you may have heard. And now this week, I want to talk about leading leaders. And to emphasize within this that we are really talking about the people side of things. We are completely neglecting financial resources, strategy, all those other things. We're talking about what do you do within that role. And I just need to acknowledge how big of a piece we're taking out, because as you grow in your role, those roles will be incredibly important of setting strategy and other pieces. But one of the things we're going to do, so we've got 1 week left in this series, and the next month, we're going to do a whole series on just kind of like these basics of leadership pieces. We're going to talk about culture. We're going to talk about systems. We're going to talk about vision. We're going to talk about all these different things. So I'm excited to get into that. So that'll kind of deal with that other half.
Breaking news.
Yeah,
That's
VJ's
awesome.
finding out right now.
I'm geeking out over here.
You can think of a title. If you can think of a title between now and the end of the episode.
Fair enough.
And that other note on titles is next week is all the way
up.
But we're not going to say it anymore until then. So, leading leaders.
Yes.
Leading leaders. What is the role? What do you need to be focused on as you are leading leaders? So the first piece on this, I want to hammer home on just two things for leading leaders. Your first role is to manage your direct reports. And I know you may now at this point in time be sick of us talking about management, but this is important. You are still a manager. You have direct reports. You cannot neglect that skill set. And so, as we talked about in the last episode, your roles of setting priorities, giving accountability, and development for your direct reports is incredibly important. But there's some unique things within this that we need to address that are just missed at this level. The danger is when you are at this level in the organization that you assume that people know how to do this. And they don't. Most people don't know how to manage. So we assume people know how to do this, but especially if they're a frontline manager, they won't have any idea how to do this, and they will inherently do what you model for them. They will take their cues as a manager from your behavior as their manager. And so there's a tendency we're at this level, I don't need to be doing that anymore. Everyone knows what's going on. And poor management at this level has a catastrophic effect within the organization, because those things that you will model without intending to will boil down, will kind of cascade down into their direct reports. And so you cannot neglect your role of a manager, because you're acknowledging in your role, you're modeling for your people how they should manage their direct reports. But this is what people do, is we are poor managers of our direct reports at that level, and then they're poor managers of their direct reports. And then what we want to do is we want to step in and directly manage their direct reports without managing them. And when you do that, because you don't like how things are looking, and so you'll want to step in 2 levels down and whip everyone into shape, tell them exactly how they should operate. And when you do that, you will create chaos, you'll create frustration, people will have no idea who they're supposed to report to, and you will inevitably end up blaming your managers when it's you.
Yeah.
And so, this is so important. So here's a couple tips on this. Outside of the fact that be a good manager for your direct reports, be a good manager there. A couple tips. For one, celebrate publicly, manage in private. Celebrate your manager, your direct reports publicly, manage them in private. There will be times in which the entire team is present. And it would be easy in those moments to go, well, you should have done this. And when you do that, you will destroy their credibility, which is what you want them to have, because you want them to be operating well. My kind of personal note that I wrote in this is management is a one-on-one game, not a team sport. When you're setting priorities, when you're giving those coaching and holding accountable, do that one-on-one and let them manage their team. Celebrate publicly, manage in private. The second thing is you have to take the empowering posture to another level. And if that's unfamiliar, my goodness, go back to the last episode and listen to that portion again on the posture of the leaders as you coach them, because you can either cause them to shrink back and create followers because you're telling them what to do, or you can help empower them and create leaders by asking great questions. And when you are leading leaders, you had better make sure that you are empowering the people that you are leading and creating other leaders instead of just followers. So that is and I know we've talked now for a really long time on management, but it is so important that you manage well when you are leading leaders. And then a second piece that we're going to talk on within this, and Veej, my guess is this is where the majority of our conversation will end up at the end, is your role is to develop future leaders.
Yeah.
It is so pivotal, not just direct reports, not just the empowering posture, but that you are developing future leaders. So let me tell you everything I'm learning right now on this, okay? So these are like all my notes. Take whatever is helpful within this on developing future leaders. For one, you need to know when to step out of the room. You need to know when your presence is stifling the development of someone else. And my hard thing is to go, I love being on the team. I love being part of the team. I think it's a blast. I think it is so much fun, the team dynamics of work. But I just need to acknowledge, I don't want to be liked. I don't want to do what I simply enjoy. I want to do what's best for the organization and for the people. And so sometimes that's I've got to get out.
Yeah.
And I've got to fully empower them to do their work and to do it well. So you need to know when to step out of the room. Another thing is to acknowledge that you need to develop not just the people who are under you, but you need to develop everyone. You need to make it your goal that you are raising the leadership level, that you're raising the skill level of everyone who you have contact with. And there's this old kind of thought line of going, oh, you need to get ready to develop the future leaders, spend some time with the future leaders. And the thing that I have realized is I just don't always know who the best future leaders are going to be. I don't trust my evaluation and judgment that much. I know when someone's leading well, but I don't necessarily have the foresight to know who's going to have those internal standards of excellence that will just work and pay dividends down the line. And so the quote that I heard from Chris Hodges is, you have to gather many to find one. Gather many to find one. Collect a number of potential leaders and develop them. And then you will find some significant leaders come out of that. One of the people who are on our team at Be Hope Church is, I don't even know what her official role was before now. Now she is the director of our guest experience, but she had worked in a support staff role for years. But our director of guest experience, Heather Rogers, has turned out to just be this fantastic leader. She doesn't overstep her bounds. She gives proper authority to people. Her team is functioning in a healthy way. And I go like, I wouldn't have had the foresight to see that, but she is doing amazing within there. And it's because we continuously developed as a group, and she wasn't excluded from these things, that she was able to step into that. So don't trust your judgment on assessing future talent. Gather many to find one. Focus on developing future leaders. Now, there's two things that are really pivotal at this time that we're going to focus on the next episode. So I'm just going to give you a taste of what that is because in the next episode, we're going to talk about leading an organization. And that's not even necessarily from a senior level leadership role. It's anyone who has, whether it's a department, and your department could just be you and a bunch of people who are showing up, but how you lead that. But there are two pieces within that I just want to acknowledge that are important within leading leaders. And one of them is establishing a leadership development culture. So in this episode, we've talked a lot more about the focus of developing future leaders. Next episode, we're going to talk about creating that leadership development culture. And then a second piece that is, again, it's important at this level, but we're going to save that conversation for the next episode, is helping to create accountability for results you're not directly connected to. And so to give the example, in my role as senior pastor, I am responsible for everything that happens in every ministry environment, and yet I'm not present in every ministry environment in every part of our church. And so how can I create that accountability and drive results when I'm not directly connected to it? But as you step into your role of leading leaders, you must strive to be an amazing manager. You must put extra focus on developing future leaders. And when you do this, you'll find a couple things. You'll find, first off, that the more things that you are doing, that means the more that you are taking out of the hands of others. If your list of tasks you have to get done is a mile long, the reality is you're not creating that empowering culture and you're just developing leaders. If they can do it, they should do it. If they have the ability to 80% do it to your level, they should do it. Now, the other note on that is to go, you will not have less work. And that was a naive, ignorant idea I had years ago of, if I empower all these people to do this, what am I going to do? And the truth is, there is always important work to do. You will not have less work, but you should, if you're doing this right, you should have less work assigned to you. If you are leading leaders well, the fruit at the end of that, the result at the end of that is you have less work assigned to you and you're able to be more proactive and able to initiate the work that matters most. If you don't manage people 2 levels down, your work can be proactive. So these are just some of the functional shifts that have to be made as you step into a leading leader's role. You don't leave prior skill sets behind, but you do need to adapt and transform some of the things you do and some of the things that you are focused upon.
Again, a ton of notes there, a ton of things that we could cover. I'll start with one of the things that I think a lot of people want to do, but end up not doing, which is celebrate publicly and coach privately. And it's kind of tied in with the other part that you said, which is know when to step out of the room. Talk more about those two pieces and how it gives the people that you're trying to lead to go the place that the organization needs to go. Talk about those two. Celebrate publicly, coach privately, and know when to step out of the room more. Just give some more context to that.
So I wholeheartedly believe that we fundamentally get development wrong. We think development is pointing out weaknesses, and I don't think that's the case. Development is building on strengths. Development is building on strengths. And so when the things that the majority of people hear me say is celebrate publicly, what I am enabling people to do is to build on the things that we are succeeding on. And one of the ways we do this practically is we have one all-staff meeting every all-staff meeting begins with wins.
Yes.
Unless if we started with worship, but it's one or the other.
Right.
And they're honestly, I don't mean they're the same thing. They're not the same thing, but they're geared the same direction, that we're appreciating, we're affirmative, we're celebrating the good within that. And so I think everybody, they like the idea of, I stepped into that room and I just went off. I stepped into that room and I just my team wasn't operating and I just let them have it. And I can tell you, there's been a handful of times that I've done that, but most of the times that I did that, it's because I didn't have all the information.
Yeah.
Very rarely has the teams that I have led performed under the standard that I have set for them, and it was entirely their fault. It often came back to communication, priorities, clarity, something like that within me in the ways in which I needed to grow. And so what I want to do as a whole is I want to say, this is the good. This is what we need to replicate. This is what we need to focus on. And when there's coaching, I pull someone aside because there are some weaknesses that need to be ironed out.
Yeah.
There are some weaknesses that need to be developed, but I don't want our focus to be there. We need to acknowledge it, but I don't want that to be the thing that everyone's talking about, because you build, you grow on your strengths. And so when I do those two things, here's the great piece of your question and the way that you asked it.
Yeah.
When I do those two things, when I build on strengths, celebrate publicly, and coach privately, I enable myself to step out of the room and everyone's already focused on what we're doing well instead of what we're doing poorly.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. The other thing that you spoke about was, first of all, this whole thing, I love that you started out with the people, especially in what we do. Yeah. And anyone who's listening, who's leading any kind of non-denominational or nonprofit. Nonprofit's the word I was looking for there. But anyone who's in that business of it's really hard to lead people.
Yes.
It's not easy work. It's even harder when they don't get paid.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's two different dynamics there. And the thing that we know is, as leaders is, and I wrote this down based on all the things you said, I help raise the performance of people. I lead through leaders. Yeah. And you said, gather many to find one, from Chris Hodges. Talk more about that piece of, hey, everyone can grow, but man, only certain can lead. How do you develop? How do you find those people in that gathering? What are you looking for?
This may be the opposite of what you're hoping that I'm going to answer.
Maybe.
But I will say within this, I will say, I don't know who's going to be a great leader. And so at the end of the day, initially I am looking for two things. I'm looking for people who are available and people who have desire. And that's my only criteria. I'm not looking skill set. Yeah. I could care less about skill set. I'm not looking competency or experience. I'm looking availability and I'm looking desire. And then I judge it by its fruit. Not everyone will lead. Not everyone should lead. Oh, let me say it even stronger. No one should lead how I lead, because no one else has the skill sets that I do. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I mean that as we all have unique, different skill sets.
Right.
And so you shouldn't lead how I lead. And so I'm not going to dictate how you should lead. There's some principles you need to follow, absolutely. But I'm looking for availability. I'm looking for desire. And then I judge the leadership ability based upon the fruits, because leaders get stuff done. So I go, is it healthy? Is it going the right direction? Well, then you must be a great leader, because there's no other way it'd be happening.
So it almost comes out in what they're already doing. I mean, you just are watching some of the things that are transpiring, and if it is in line with the mission, then it works itself out almost. You're just gathering the people to find out who's going to do what.
And I think one of the telltale signs as to if the person will keep growing, okay? So maybe this is kind of like the further level of your question, is to go, I want people, when I hand them additional responsibility, they're excited about it.
Yeah.
That shows me if they're going to keep growing. If I come to someone with a project that is well outside their job description and they kind of look at me like, are you really giving this to me? I'm telling you, that's the last project I'll give them, and that's the last development they'll go. Because when I'm giving someone a project, I'm not seeking to load more work on them. I'm seeking to develop them.
Yeah.
And so if they're excited, I know you can go far.
Oh, that's good. That's I mean, man, that's exactly what I need to know for myself, right? I mean, everybody needs to know, hey, where are you when you get handed something?
Yeah.
Where is your mind?
If I could cycle back to the first one in this episode, if I hand someone a project and they start talking about burnout,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah. That's exactly right. So the last thing we'll cover real quick, you said the more things you're doing, the more you're taking out of the hands of others. As leaders, we talked about last episode and we brought it up again, the 80-20.
Yep.
What's the best way to deliver that work to someone when you know that they're ready to receive it?
So this is what I found, and this is a little bit in relation to the last question, is I will start to have the conversation about me stepping out. And if they look excited, then I'm fully ready to give it to them.
Yeah.
And I say that as like, I can remember being in that spot and I was pumped when I got opportunity. But then the next thing I'll do, and this comes into some of the next episode, but I want to be crystal clear on the bullseye that we're going to hit.
Yeah.
Because we got to be, we don't have to do it the same, but we have to have the same values and we have to both know what the finished product needs to look like. And then I'll step out.
That's great. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Hey, listen, we're going to wrap up episode 32 right now. Kevin, is there something you need someone to walk away from this episode?
Bottom line for this episode that I wrote down is leading leaders means you're a more effective manager, especially in priority and development. Don't abdicate your role as manager. Otherwise, your managers will follow suit.
Man, that's great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're new to the podcast or haven't yet subscribed, it would mean the world to us if you did that now. Also, post about it, rate and review, or both. You won't believe how it helps us get this podcast in the hands of so many other leaders like yourself. And we love hearing your stories of how the podcast is working in your life and business. If you have a story, visit leadinghope.online and send that to us. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.